The future, it dawns with each passing moment. Tomorrow's problems awaiting the solutions of today's youth. A strong understanding of science and technology will be essential to solving those problems. But are today's students up to the task? Coming up, the stories of 5 young Americans. They are the faces of rural and urban America, of immigrants and native-born, rich and poor, all working to become the scientific leaders of their generation, the next generation. Innovation is made possible by the people of NEC, for over 30 years providing computer, communications, and semiconductor technologies for communities and businesses throughout America. NEC, 141,000 people worldwide committed to the future. I think I'd like to be a scientist, said a young girl, figure out new things and learn how things work. This child's perspective is at the heart of what defines science. In fact, when we examine what happens when children are exposed to the sciences, we see that the results are not just fun and games. An early interest in learning acts as a departure point from which each new generation of scientists emerges. This is the 3rd and final episode of our special series, The Next Generation. You're going to meet 5 surprising young people who defy the common stereotypes of what science students look or act like. You'll also hear from the former Surgeon General, Antonia Novella, NASA astronaut Colonel Guy Bluford, and pioneering medical researcher Dr. Jonas Salk, each of whom will tell us how their own childhood experiences led them to pursue careers in science. The road to success is full of detours, distractions, and possibilities. For many immigrants, coming to the United States has been a major turning point. In Sacramento, California, 18-year-old Monica Keogh is at the crossroads.
I hate reading English and reading symbolism behind it. But science always been like something that I want to achieve, you know. At the same time, it's like my friend, you know, because like it's offering me answers to my questions. I was born in Burma, in a really small town. Everybody in that town is really friendly. Everybody would know my family, and if I were to do something bad in the town, my parents would know before I even finished doing whatever I'm doing. In Burma, my dad was kind of like a merchant, and we live on like a really busy street, the main street of the town. And we have this bakery shop, and my dad hired like about 4 to 5 people to like bake all that stuff. And my mom was a teacher. Everybody respect teachers in Burma, and people would know who we are just by hearing our name. I always think about becoming like a doctor. That was my goal. My mom, like, she almost died when she was giving birth to my sister. Actually, she was unconscious, probably like a coma or something. My mom told me that the doctor didn't even know what was wrong with her and thought she was dead. That really scared me, and I thought right away, I'm going to be a doctor, because how many people have died from just something like that? My parents, when they just first find out about me wanting to be a doctor, they kind of started taking me seriously.
They have their own choice in America. That's what I think. I am Burmese, and my husband is Chinese. They are half Burmese and half Chinese, so they can have their own choice. Real Burmese, they have their own choice. And I thought my kids are kind of smart. That's why I decided to come to United States.
I would probably finish 10th grade if I would stay there, and then like work at my father's bakery shop or something. My parents always tells me to work hard, you know, get an education, otherwise you'll be working every day of life to have enough to eat and provide for your family, because they're the living example, I think. I would look at my parents and I would really want to work hard and try to provide a more comfortable life for my future family. Regina has been my friend for about 2 years now, and it's like a great comfort to me knowing that I have someone who understands me, who have the same ideas that I do. I'm thinking of your mother.
You're into that mushy stuff, aren't you? Oh, Mom.
Oh, you know me.
I love you, Mom. She has basically taught me the real meaning of friendship. I can confide in her in anything. She's an excellent student. I can work well with her. She mentors me, I mentor her in some areas. It is difficult in this school sometimes because you sit there and you get so angry when somebody who doesn't even know you will make a crack comment. Or if you actually do well in classes, sometimes they look down upon that for being smart, and we don't want to have to sacrifice our own goals, our own needs, just to have a couple of friends for a couple of years, because we're going to meet new friends later on down the road.
Since I'm a female, at the same time, I'm minority. There's going to be racial tension and, you know, sexual discrimination and all that, you know, because we see it at school. If I were to go up to a teacher at the same time with Regina, I will get more help than Regina, because, you know, they kind of stereotype the African American as not wanting to study. Stay, I want you to stay. Good job. Don't do that. He doesn't like that. None of them do.
Give her some help on that thing, Rachel. The next generation of students have essentially the same characteristics that I noticed 30-some years ago. And these individuals are exceptional. The ones that go into science are in a league of their own. And there's a certain feel that you get from a student if they're truly interested in a subject. And Monica exhibits that interest, making things a little bit better than what would normally be acceptable.
I do know that I want to go into medicine and everything, but I didn't know how much work I have to put into, like, becoming a doctor. I always question if I'll be able to see cadavers and dead bodies, you know. But this summer, you know, the last summer, I got a chance to deal with that. The Stanford program introduced me to all the different fields in medicine.
The Stanford Medical Youth Science Program is a program that started in 1988, and we target low-income, predominantly minority high school students who have shown academic excellence in science and math.
It's the first time that a lot of them have seen a college or been to Stanford, and so it's kind of a big deal, and we try to make it, you know, fun.
Stanford, God. The first time I saw Stanford, it feel like home, I think. I feel like I'm coming home to like Burma or something. You just go in there, it's so peaceful, and you see the church. Okay.
Monica's an extraordinary person. I personally definitely think she has the qualities to be a doctor, the qualities at least that are very important, which are caring and understanding and a real love for helping people and being with people.
It's just that, okay, her respect for authority is not going to be the most important thing on her mind when she knows what she wants. So she'll go for what she wants and she'll get it. Regardless of what we try and tell her is right or wrong. Or
like, for example, we have like a specific rule that says no dating within the program.
Only you.
very first time I met him, he looked very mature and he doesn't like quite fit into the group. And I don't know, I like him because he's just different and he's unique. And I can tell that he's one in a million, so I wasn't gonna let him go. My parents are like working as janitor for American building maintenance. They leave the house about 5:30 and then they will come home at 5:30 or 6. So I hardly see them. They feel sad, I think, because like they were respected people over there in Burma. But I know they're working hard and they're doing this for us and for me to be able to go to school, and they're providing us with, you know, money which come from honest occupation. So I'm really grateful for that. I will stay up till about 12, 1 to do all my homework, to turn in everything so I can do well at school. I get involved with school activities like clubs, and if they're doing something outside of school, I will go do it. At the same time, I try to work on the weekends, so try to bring in some money for myself to like just spend it for some clothes or anything I want to eat or anything like that. Okay, I have a sandwich with sausage, a coffee, orange juice, and a hash brown. Would you like ketchup with your hash brown? Okay. Have a nice day. I would want to go back and take care of like my people who are really nice, and it's just like they're the best and friendliest people in the world, I think. I grew up in that kind of environment, and I want to recapture that. So I always want to go back.
A quiet place, full of serenity. It masks the many challenges of life in inner-city Philadelphia. As in most of urban America, here young African-American males question their odds for success. But 14-year-old Tariq Hook is beating the odds.
Every day my son goes out of here, I pray for him. Being a black male, almost a young black male, you almost qualify as an endangered species. There's so many pitfalls. So my greatest fear, of course, is for his safety. Tariq, in spite of what he is internally, he's still something that some people may even fear just because of the fact that he is a black kid, even though he's not at all threatening.
Based on my exposure to Tariq, he likes to experiment with things using his hands. He likes to manipulate things and change them around and see what works. And that's what engineers like to do. When they get into their junior and senior years, we send them out to work in college labs where they can work with better equipment, more sophisticated equipment, under better conditions.
Tariq did his first science fair project in the 5th grade. He did it on earthquakes, and he got honorable mention. The next year, in 6th grade, he got a first place, and he's been getting first place ever since the 6th grade. And that's through his hard work, and he has. He always gives a nice oral presentation.
This right here is the mass the arm is picking up. It has a clockwise torque.
Okay.
This is the actual mass of the bar itself, and that has a clockwise torque.
And why is that here?
Because that's the center point of gravity.
The idea behind science fairs is to have students experience what an actual investigation is like, to experience making the plan, making the hypothesis, executing the plan, seeing what went wrong with the plan, because most of what happens in science is not successes but failures.
You showed there only the results at 20 degrees C. Why didn't you include your your results at the higher temperatures for the glass marble in your report.
It was pretty much the same experiment as last year. He changed it a little bit, but
very little additional work.
Very little additional work. The one before that, she didn't understand the theory. Absolutely.
But you cannot be deterred. And that's one of the things that Tariq has and others. They don't get upset, they don't get flustered, and they just plug and plod on and on and on.
In college, I wanted to go into aeronautical design, basically because I like designing instruments. I want to do something like design airplanes or spaceships or rockets or design cars or something like that. Last year at this fair, I didn't win anything. I was running off, playing with my friends, and plus, my presentation wasn't all that great. This year, I looked at the people who won last year, so I modeled my board after theirs. I'm concentrating on trying to win this year, but I'm not definite that I can.
Tariq is a hard worker, but he also likes to procrastinate a little bit. But he performs well in a crunch, and that's his style.
One container is empty, and one container is full of liquid. If you force the liquid through the tubing, it'll create pressure, and then when it releases it here, and it'll explode with a force. Right now, there's only air in this, but it should give you a simulation how it works. The liquids I used this year was water, microcontrol, motor oil, power steering fluid, antifreeze coolant, and 2-cycle multi-purpose lubricant.
Based on your graphical description, schematically, you just effectively are applying one weight and measuring the force required to lift that weight a certain distance. If you understand that, you'll have no problem adding to it vis-a-vis controls and this sort of thing.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.
Very good. Discipline is also very important, because there's 1,000 distractions, and, you want to make sure that your kids have the discipline to do what they have to do before they do what they enjoy doing.
I became interested in science indirectly through my mother. She's a science teacher, and she's always doing something at home that had to do with science.
Now, the hardest part is when you glue it on, the fins have to stay. So you're going to have to figure a way to prop it up. I try to be their friend
just in case the glue didn't stick.
as a parent. So we play together and we work together. And we've done that over the years, and that has built a relationship of trust and respect.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillahi wa ala barakatullahi. Ameen. See. It's raining.
Some of my heroes are my father, my mother, and same thing with my aunts and uncles. If I need their help, they're always there. My father, he always keeps it in perspective. If my head starts to swell, he'll always break it down to me, real quick and easy.
Quite naturally, I have a lot of pride in both of my children. I have a lot of pride in my wife. And that is something that is very deep, and that's something that I treasure. And of course, I want my kids to be as successful as possible. But it has to be balanced. And that's one of the things that we teach them. It can't be success at any cost. I have a great deal of trust in how he has been able to deal with the responsibilities that we've given him thus far in terms of the freedom. Many of Tariq's friends are of the same basic temperament. They have a fair exchange of ideas. They go through things that kids go through. It's always helpful to have someone there that is going through the same things that you're going through.
If I'm going to work in science, I want to enjoy it. I don't want to work it because somebody wants me to be a scientist. I want to do it because I want to be a scientist. I volunteer at the Academy of Sciences, where there are animals that live in the museum, and I take care of the animals, and I also show them to the public. Now, what does he feel like? 2 hands, one at a time, 2 hands very softly.
When Tariq first came to us, he was an exceptional candidate for volunteer. He's now gotten experiences with a wide variety of animals, seen how they live, has learned how to care for them, as well as just working with people. Take a look at the lizard.
The tail begins right where the line ends, right there.
I think I'm an average kid. There's nothing special about me. I don't have an extremely high IQ. It's just that at a young age, I just had a lot of encouragement to do certain things, and I've been doing it all my life, so I've sort of got used to it.
Yo, can I get a slice of cheese and a Sprite?
I don't think that my peers see me as a nerd. I don't think they see me as some kind of genius either. They talk to me and they act around me like I'm a normal kid, because I am. And it's just like we all have different interests. Some like to play basketball, some like to play football, some like to do science fairs.
I grew up in West Philly. My parents were strong role models for me. My mother was a school teacher. She taught in the public school system, and she taught special education. And I had a father who was a mechanical engineer who worked for the U.S. Army. And I recognized I had a father which went out to work every morning, enjoyed what he did, and I saw that enthusiasm coming back. And I realized early that when I became an adult that I wanted to be, I wanted to do something that I thought I would enjoy. I liked airplanes. I made lots of model airplanes as a kid, had models all around my room, read a lot about airplanes, and decided that because I had a strong interest in airplanes, a strong interest in science and math, that I would be an aerospace engineer. And I felt that if I could be an aerospace engineer, people would pay me to do things that I enjoy doing. And I've been very successful at that. The thrill of flying in space, that was what I always wanted to do. And it wasn't until later on that I recognized the importance and the significance of the flight that I was going to fly on, being the first African American to fly in space. For me, riding up was a great experience. I rode up on a night launch, and I really enjoyed the ride up. And it was really interesting because after the flight, we replayed the tapes that we recorded for cockpit conversations. And it was interesting to look back, listen to the tapes, and in the background there's somebody giggling and laughing, riding up on this night launch, and we realized that was me.
Awards and prizes, scholarships and trophies. These are the symbols of hard-won success. Our next story is of 19-year-old Claudine Madras, who spent 4 long years on a project that would earn her a place in one of the most prestigious science competitions in the world. But the real story is not the winning, but the process, and the young woman behind the prize-winning smile.
And there around our country, science, no pain, no gain. We continue our series on math and science education tonight with a look at
Jody Madras of Newton. She finished second in the Westinghouse Science Talent Search.
This year, we feature the top 3 winners of the Westinghouse Science Talent Search in our nation's high schools. Tell me, Claudine, about your future. Where are you planning to go to school?
I'd love to have a job, a career involved with the space program. I think it's an inspirational part of our country and of the world in general. I'd say definitely the most satisfying part of winning Westinghouse was just being able to meet the other people who were there. The experience of spending 5 days in Washington with these people who had also done these projects and who had also been motivated in science. And the real reason why we do these science projects is not to get to the winner's circle. It's not to get the cash or the scholarship or anything like that. It's because we have an interest in science, which we wanted to cultivate. We wanted the process more than the ending point. Well, when I was in 9th grade, I was able to contact a professor at MIT whose interest lay in astronomy and specifically asteroids and the study of Pluto.
I first heard from Claudine by a letter that I received, and she expressed her interest in finding a project to do for her Westinghouse competition. At that point, I gave Claudine a call and invited her to come and work with me over the summer. She reports that when I called her up, I asked her how old she was, and when she replied 14, that there was quite a long dead silence on the other end of the phone. Among the things that she found and we discussed was a project involving an asteroid named 951 Gaspara that the Galileo spacecraft was going to fly past. The work I did with Claudine involved planning a set of observations involving telescopes. We then went out to the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, and spent about 4 or 5 nights at the telescope making the observations. It took one person in a computer room and one person going up to the telescope, which was out in the sub-zero weather.
One of the most vivid scenes I can remember is at 3 in the morning, when it was 10 degrees below zero, kind of jumping around trying to keep my hands warm in the dome while Professor Binzel was downstairs in the nice warm computer room operating the computers and expecting me to operate this hardware.
The importance of the work that Claudine was able to do was that from her observations we were able to determine how fast the asteroid was spinning, what direction the asteroid was spinning, and what orientation the asteroid might have at the time of the spacecraft encounter. This let the spacecraft team point their cameras in the most optimal fashion to try to collect the best possible images once the spacecraft arrived.
I can't remember a time where I haven't been encouraged to reach beyond my current knowledge and grasp and challenge myself, and been encouraged to do that and had the support network to do that from just about everybody around me. Both of my parents have always encouraged me in the sciences and just in general to, do everything that I can.
Hi, Jose.
Oh, good morning.
Morning. How are things going?
Well, my father's a surgeon, and that in itself is, a job which is pretty difficult to aspire to, but what I remember the most about just having him as a support figure isn't so much him and his job, but him as a person and him as a dad.
Possibly the greatest compliment Claudine ever gave me when she was 10 or 12 years old. She came up to me one day in a very affectionate mood and said, "I'm so glad that I have a silly daddy." And of course, I looked at her and wondered what she meant and what I had done this time. But she simply said that all her friends have very strict, severe daddies, and she has a silly daddy, which meant that we were reaching her. She was restless, she was enthusiastic, she was eager. She always was challenging us when we would go out to meals, to restaurants. After 2 minutes, she'd become fidgety and ask me for a problem of some sort. Give me a problem. It would end up either being too easy, in which case she was bored and disgusted, or too difficult, in which case it would end up in tears.
It was really fun, and I ended up, I ended up having an early introduction to vectors and to calculus and to physics, and in a fun, encouraging way. My mother has been a role model in a lot of ways. Just being a woman, PhD, neurobiologist in charge of labs and experiments in itself is an incredible height to aspire to.
Is that I really want you folks to be able to answer to your patients, how do these drugs work in the brain?
When Claudine was in grade 3, she came home one day and she said, "Mommy, we're going to learn science at last." And I said, "Oh, tell me what you're going to learn." And she showed me a sheet of bones, 32 bones in the human skeleton. She was going to memorize them. And I said, "That's not science, Claudine. You're going to learn how to hate science if you have to memorize 32 names of a skeleton." And the very next day, I went to the school principal and I said, "Just let me have an hour a week for the next year or two with these kids, grade 3, grade 4.
She taught us about biology and geology and all of that, but I just remember when she got to the astronomy topics, being absolutely fascinated by what she would be talking about. One thing which I realized once I came to Harvard is that no matter how many accomplishments I had during high school, they counted for nothing once I got here. I had to start from the beginning. It doesn't come easily at all.
If somehow the trajectory hits that axis, the v-axis on the negative side, which crashes into the v-axis on the negative side,
We get a very good sense of the poet's persona of David, very multidimensional, very humorous, many different facets, but the women are more two-dimensional, aren't they?
What does that mean? It means that if an observer measured a charge in frame S, and someone else measures the same collection of charges in S prime, it will obtain the same value for the charge measured, okay? This makes perfect sense to you.
Classwork is no longer going to immediately be understandable. I have to work very hard to keep my head above the water and can't get behind. The same personality trait in me, which makes me want to challenge myself, has also led me to do ROTC. It's kind of a parallel.
Morning, Bravo Company.
We evaluate them on their effort, their physical fitness, their judgment, character, maturity, leadership potential and leadership ability for the upper classes, and Claudine did very well in all those areas. I think she demonstrates enormous potential as an asset to the Navy.
One of the big attractions of doing it is just the opportunity of working in a group with the other students. I think me, as well as the rest of the females in this unit, are trying to break the stereotype of women being a separate class of officers as men.
I do know this, that we're starting to put female midshipmen on cruises during the summer on combatant ships. So, doors starting to open up.
What you gonna do? Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights.
The weekends are a blessed time. That's the only way to describe them. It's by the time the Friday rolls around, everybody is so exhausted from pulling one all-nighter, 3 hours of sleep the next night, and then maybe falling asleep during their classes the day after that, that you just need that kind of time to relax. Also considering that you don't often see your friends during the week because you're so wrapped up in your schedule, it's a nice time to kind of reacquaint yourself with these people that you're living with.
Claudine's learning style is best characterized as tremendous enthusiasm. She was always open to new suggestions, but not just in science, in anything. She's on autopilot. We point her in the right direction, and she steers her own craft.
Ever since childhood, I was very desirous of trying to do something to help improve the human condition. I never expected, as a child, that it would be through science. I discovered that later in life. At the beginning of my life, I was exposed to the occurrence of disease, epidemics, polio epidemics, influenza epidemics, wars, injustices, prejudices, and this is what I wanted to counter. And I imagined at that time doing that through studying law, going to Congress, making just laws. Abraham Lincoln was an idol. Moses was an example. My mother wanted me to be a teacher. I wanted to be a lawyer, but I could never win an argument with her. And it was soon thereafter that I gave up that option, and my protest was to study medicine instead. And then, when I became interested in the study of medicine, that was when I became interested in science, the purpose of which was to bring science into medicine. As a child, I had no possible way of imagining that I would be involved in the development of a vaccine for polio, nor to be involved in the work on AIDS, nor could I even imagine working on AIDS 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And so there is so much that's unknown and unknowable in the future. But what one has to do is to be encouraged early in life to be willing to take risks. And somehow, some way, by listening to children and encouraging them in their wildest fantasies, they'll learn to grow up and trust themselves and reach farther out into the unknown and create a future closer to their heart's desire. I can tell you that it is out of dreams that reality is made. And therefore, children should be encouraged to dream. Children should be encouraged to have dreams of glory, dreams of accomplishment. And when that takes place, there's nothing you need to do.
For today's students, the hectic pace of life can be the greatest barrier to progress. Working parents often have little time to share at day's end. On the fringes of Chicago's metropolis, adversity is being turned to advantage. Valerie Hernandez is only 8 years old. In the first decade of the 21st century, she'll be choosing her major in college, a choice that may very well tell us what went right with the next generation.
What I like about science is dinosaurs, mammals, insects, reptiles, lots of other things too. You get to know lots of things every day. I like the stuff that me and Nancy do. Sometimes she might come to my house and we might play Barbie dolls, or I'll go to her house and we'll play Discovery. That's about it. You have to write them down again.
Nancy, she's basically the same age as Valerie, and they do a lot of things there after school. I'd say a few times a month she does science experiments here at home. I provide her with books, paper, pencils, whatever she needs to go ahead and be creative or do whatever she wants to do. She also belongs to the Cool Kids Club, and what it is they send her a packet on a monthly basis. It comes with a lot of different information, including science, and that's where she gets some of the experiments that she tries at home.
And you have to drop a penny in each one so to know how many seconds it takes to get to the bottom. You can go first, then. You forgot to see how many seconds it took.
Valerie, she's pretty good once we're home about doing homework and stuff and keeping herself busy. Claudia needs a little more attention. She's still at the age where she's not sure what she wants to do. And my son Jose, who is 11, is developmentally delayed, speech impaired, and mentally handicapped, so he's a handful in itself. It's very difficult operating as a single parent. Well, to me it is. I guess I've somewhat adjusted, but people ask me, my God, how can you do it with 3 kids and only you? The day is, sometimes it's never ending and sometimes it's not long enough. Sometimes they just need a lot of my time and it's not there for them. And it's very hard. I do have some help and some support with Valerie, with Mrs. Rojas, who is my neighbor. Mrs. Rojas takes Valerie to school and brings her home from school. She has a daughter, Nancy, and she's at home all day as opposed to me working. So she has a little more time to dedicate to Valerie and her own children. To me, it is important that the children should be out with their families. You know, when we do go out, sometimes it's difficult because they all need me at the same time, and it's hard to decide who should get my attention first. Valerie, she told me one day, she said, Mommy, you either give all your time to Jose because of his problems, or you give your time to Claudia because she's the littlest. Jose, he wouldn't sit for me, so I found that if Valerie read to him, he would sit for her and listen, maybe since they're closer in age.
There were big dinosaurs, there were small ones. There were fast dinosaurs and slow ones.
She's learned to accept Jose's handicap, but sometimes she feels like she's being neglected because of it. I feel guilty at times, but I don't feel that guilty because I see that she's very independent.
Mom really puts a lot of responsibilities on her, I think, to care for her sister and to deal with her brother. And her brother does get a lot of her mom's attention. I don't think Valerie takes it negatively, but I think Valerie uses that energy and positively tries to get her mom's attention by getting good grades.
Okay, class, it's free time.
Valerie is a very sociable person. She gets along with all the other students. She's the mother hen sometimes, but she gets along with all the students. The students respond to her. She's won a lot of awards, and they really look up to her. If they have a problem, they would tend to like straight to her desk because they know that she can help them. Science is highly emphasized in this school. We have science lab. All the other subjects branch from science. Valerie is very enthusiastic. She's very excited about school, and she loves learning. And I kind of pushed her along and tried to encourage her to reach as far as she could at this level. Is she right?
Yes! I became interested in science when I started reading books, and they were about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are interesting because they are fun to know, and they are, sometimes I think they are chubby.
The Field Museum is a favorite of Valerie's only because they have their dinosaur displays there. She has a lot of questions as far as where they came from and, you know, what did they do here and their whole purpose here on Earth.
Not that scientists are nosy or anything, they just like to know about things.
So I'm John Flynn. I'm a paleontologist from the Field Museum. A paleontologist is somebody who studies fossils. That's our record of what life was like way before we were around. And you know why you're back here today? You're getting a behind-the-scenes tour. You're getting to see stuff that nobody else gets to see. Who's this guy?
That's it.
What's the biggest dinosaur that you can meet? Tyrannosaurus rex. Yeah, look at those teeth.
Yeah.
You see the way they curve back like that?
They're really strong.
You know why they do that?
So when they get something in their mouth, it can't come out.
That's right, because if the food tries to get out, it can't, because it's pointing backwards to hold them in the mouth. So this was a pretty good meat eater. Imagine coming across something this size. Look at how long that neck is.
Wow. Some of these bones are fake, right?
Yep. Which ones are fake?
The purple ones.
The purple ones.
So why did the dinosaurs die?
Why did they die? Well, some people think there was an asteroid or a meteor.
Some people think asteroids hit the Earth, and some people think the volcano erupted and it splattered everywhere, and that's why the dinosaurs died.
So who do you think here would like to be a paleontologist when they grow up? Anybody?
I believe Valerie will be a great leader and do something very important.
Well, from the longest time that I remember, I always wanted to be a doctor. But like anyone who comes from a neighborhood where no one has had one, you tend to keep it to yourself. And the most important thing is that as long as you believe that you're going to do it, then you plan accordingly. One thing that is important is that I was born with one of those congenital diseases that most of the time people would say, stay home, don't study, just have a good life. You can't do that when you have a mother who believes even when you're sick, you have to be educated. That's one, but most importantly, I had an aunt who was also a nurse, and since I was a kid, she used to take me to the hospital and tell everybody, this kid is going to be a doctor. And every time I needed some doctor to take care of me, they always were amused by this little kid with so many problems who still wanted to be a doctor. And when I was an intern, I remember vividly, there was a little boy that had the same disease that I had when I was a little kid. And by sheer coincidence, the nurses called me because the mother didn't feel that he should continue to live because he was sick. I remember I told her, do you think I'm a good physician? And she says, of course you are, Dr. Novella, but that has nothing to do for the reason I called to talk to you about my kids' health. And I said, well, I am to tell you a secret. Your son has the same thing I did, and look at me now. I'm telling you what is good or bad for your kid. If you take away the opportunities he has now, my mother would have done the same thing you did now. You wouldn't have me here. I want you to give him a chance. I think, why don't we go through one surgery at a time and then see what is going to come out of this? I don't know who cried more, the mother or I. And I hope they taught that mother. Somewhere along the way, I wish I knew where the kid is. I don't know, but I hope I saved it.
The Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, the home of 18-year-old Jody Salyards, one of the most honored high school science students in the country.
That's the future of America is young men like Jody. We're really proud of him.
He thinks better than most engineers that I have ever worked with.
We got a lot of enjoyment out of just talking with him and working with him.
He's shy around women, so I'm usually the one that goes up and talks to him and gets him set up with the dates with the women.
He sets goals for himself, and sometimes you would think that they were unrealistic, but he's managed to achieve and attain about 95% of the goals that he's set for himself. Some people ask me if Jody is a genius, and my answer to that would be no, but I think he's an above-average student who has set goals for himself and worked hard to achieve. I began homeschooling my children 5 years ago. The schools in the area were not providing what my children needed educationally, so we chose to bring our children home. I want you to find the phrases and mark what type of phrase they are and how the phrase is used in that subject. We cover all subjects, take the children on field trips, help them do lab work, try to take and put their education into practice.
I believe that I've been able to do limitless things that I would never be able to do in the school system. I've traveled all over the nation. I've done limitless research hours. I've been able to do that just because of the fact that I am homeschooled. It allows me a lot of freedom to travel, to be able to do testing in areas that normally I wouldn't be able to do.
I developed a method for disinfection of wastewater via solar radiation. That had never been done before, and I needed some way of testing my system. So I called Rocco, which is one of the largest chicken processing plants in the nation, and they referred me to their lab. I talked to Mrs. Winecoop. She was very open and willing. She said, yeah, bring them on down. And that's how I got started with her.
Our quality control manager, Steve Rhodes, took the call. He came into the lab and asked us if we would be interested in doing some of the wastewater testing for him. So we looked at each other and said, yes! So Rose and I started coming in on Saturdays and Sundays, and Rose brought her little girl, Amanda. And we found Jody to be a shy, a little 15-year-old or something like that. And I believe, ultimately, we proved that his theory was correct, that the ultraviolet rays from the sun did indeed kill the bacteria.
The best processes are those that are simple. It might have been difficult to come up with, but they're simple processes. Farming is a simple process. People have spent years developing it, ensuring crop production, crop yield, but it's a simple process. In my mind, research is a simple process. Development of ideas, machinery, new technologies. As Thomas Edison said, there's a better and easier way to do everything. Find it. Work, work, till all work is done, then find more work. When I first started with science, I don't even think that it was because of any one particular person. I was just a curious boy. I was just so curious. But luckily enough, I had people around me stimulating my mind, allowing me to be curious, working with motors, working with my father, work with his tool making and his machine design. And he's meant a lot to me. I'm proud of the things that he's done.
We need to talk different. We need to be different. We need to be peculiar people. Amen. Amen. We shouldn't be like the world. We need to be different. Amen.
Our church is more like a family to me. We always help each other. When I was doing a lot of my research, several of the ladies from the church came over and helped me cut out things and put things together for my backboard. Glenn is a very quiet person, and most people wouldn't think of him as a person to motivate because he's so quiet.
How you doing, Emerson?
Pretty good, Glenn. How you doing?
Good. Got some things. One day he was here at our shop. I have a heating and air conditioning shop, and he started experimenting some with a vortex, and he came up with the idea that he might be able to invent a compressor that would work off of air and not use any type of refrigerants, which would be harmful to the ozone. So we started working because I had the supplies here in my shop.
I got the idea for my thermoacoustic refrigeration device when I was hunting this winter with my cousins in Michigan. Normally we hunt for deer, but this time we tried something a little unusual. We got bored that afternoon, so we took some propane tanks and set them out in a field, hoping to create a nice, fiery explosion. As you can see from here, everything is frozen. This is basically Boyle's law in effect. When an inert gas expands, it cools. When it's compressed, it heats up. This device simulates that compression and decompression of the gas, utilizing the sound. Where the icing takes place, some type of heat exchanger mechanism would have to be installed to extract the cooling from the device. But other than that, it's a device that produces refrigeration, CFC-free.
Jody has a very good friend named Jason, who's probably a direct opposite of him. He's very tolerant of Jody and his scientific endeavors and just sits back and listens to him go on and on by the hours of the way he's trying to make a change or develop a new idea. And then you ask Jason later on, did you understand it? No, but I just let him talk anyway.
Well, fourth grade, he was really a nerd. He used to wear these real big, thick glasses, and he was science all the way, nothing else. And then fifth and sixth grade, he was still a nerd. He just never did, well, he didn't pay no attention to girls. It wasn't nothing but science.
It's because I was scared of my mom. I was scared of my mama what she'd think of him.
But he just, I don't know, he was really a nerd. But then after he got about seventh grade, he started really mellowing out. Right. He's good in science, and he likes to study and everything in science. And then again, he's an art kind of guy, too, because he likes going hunting and fishing, doing things I like to do.
He never tried to detract from my studying or try to get me not to, or say, boy, all you do is study, all you do is do research. You know, he's never done that, because he knows that research means a lot to me. If I'm not working, doing research, I'm with him.
Jody showed up on my back doorstep about 3.5 years ago, looking for a computer. He was doing one of his science projects, and I had never met him before. But this young fellow said, "Sir, I need some help." I think he was due to turn in his final report within a week and a half. And we had 3.5 weeks worth of work. We just spent a lot of long hours, long into the night. And he was successful in winning some major prizes with his project, statewide. My experience with Jody has set me up to do similar things for whoever comes along again. Jody becoming part of our family, teaching me a lot of stuff, technically, encouraging me to stay with things when in the face of adversity, wasn't a strong point of mine.
I believe at 6 years old, I wanted to be an engineer, and I've always wanted to be an engineer. I remember at Christmas time playing with a box more than I played with a toy, taking the toys apart, taking everything apart. I was always taking things apart, touching. I still get in trouble for touching.
Science moves at a bewildering pace, a whirling electric universe of inspiration, discovery, and invention, changing the world as it changes itself. It isn't realistic to expect all children to become scientists, but daily life in the years to come will increasingly depend on a basic knowledge of science and technology. We can't say for what service to humanity young Tariq Hook might win a Nobel Prize, or for what purpose Claudine Madras may one day walk on the surface of another planet. We can't predict what contributions they and the young people you've met during the past hour will make to society. What we do know is that science is an unrelenting pursuit, sparked by the very nature of the human spirit. And we've seen how, given the right environment, young people will seize the opportunity to excel. For Innovation, I'm Jim Hartz. Innovation is made possible by the people of NEC, for over 30 years providing computer, communications, and semiconductor technologies for communities and businesses throughout America. NEC, 141,000 people worldwide committed to the future.
For a printed transcript, please send $5 to Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. To order by credit card, call 303-831-9000. Please specify program subject.